This is RadioFire.com. Of course, yours truly, Dami K, in here as always. And I am joined by someone who I've been looking forward to talking to on this subject. Political pundit, a brainiac when it comes to politics. Catalina Byrd, how you doing?
I'm good, D. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. Considering all that's going on, how have you been doing, by the way?
I've been good. It's still an election cycle, so there's still lots to be done. But
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, I'm hanging in there. Me personally, I'm fine. It's just a lot of hypocrisy getting exposed right now as we get into November.
Yeah. And when you say hypocrisy, what who's been getting exposed? Do you think?
I think it's the hypocrisy of the Democrats. Like right now, that there was this push for Joe Biden to pick a black woman as his vice presidential candidate. The hashtag is win with black women. Black men have, for the last decade and a half or so, been kind of like the base of the Democratic Party and who is messaged to the most. And so then you have the announcement of Kamala. Ooh. And, now there are black Republican female candidates who are not included in this hashtag, just like kind of Democrats co-opted Black Lives Matter, even though it's not exclusive to Democrats. They've also co-opted this lead with black women lead, win with black women, and it excludes certain black women. And so, yeah, it's just, to me, it's hypocritical because all of the things that people are using to defend Kamala could be used to defend some conservative women that I know. And when you bring that up to own.
So,
On our community, the way that we treat Democrats.
all right. So I wasn't expecting you to take that type of stance. So let's talk more specifically about Kamala. Um, what issue do you have with her? I noticed that a lot of Republicans are being hard on her, but you don't really have a direct go to kind of dismiss her. So I'm hearing different things. She's not black. She's a cop. What is your issue
But those things aren't coming. Those things aren't coming from Republicans. Those
what
things
the
are
she's
coming
not black
from
things not coming from Republicans?
the she's not black. The she's a cop. Her record is AG and state.
The president. Okay, she's not a citizen or she's
Those
not eligible.
things
The
aren't coming
president
from
said that.
Republicans. Those were her when she was in the primary.
The president
The
said she's
president
not
got that off of
eligible.
Twitter. He wasn't saying that. He wasn't saying that a year ago when
Yeah.
progressives inside the Democratic Party had an issue with her because of her record as Attorney General of the state of California. You have to
Hmm.
remember that there were things that happened under her term as the prosecutor that are against the Black Lives Matter, defund the police, core contingencies value models. She's been very pro lock them up. She's been the sterilization of black women inside of California prison happened under her term, and so that was part of the division of the party. The party itself, not Republicans, because we had our own stuff to deal with. The party was not united around her, and she only got 2% of the vote. And now, because she's symbolic of something, and she wasn't the only black woman on that short list, there are some that are saying, I didn't like her when she was trying to be at the top of the ticket because of things that she's done, and I don't like her now. And so I don't even know that she really helped Joe Biden more than a Susan Rice could have, because her background is far more polarizing to a portion of the Democratic electorate that Republicans don't have to attack her.
Yeah, well, they definitely have to attack her, but she's the pick. She's gonna be the mouthpiece for Biden more than Biden's gonna be. Um, it's amazing to hear a conservative person uh, champions pick of Susan Rice. All we would have been hearing about if Susan Rice was picked would be Benghazi. So I'm very glad that Susan Rice was not the pick because that would have just been 2016 and 2015 all over again.
I mean, but we're about to have all of that all over again because Trump's not losing re-election because Biden is a flawed candidate at this point in 2020
Oh,
that
they're
should have
all
been
flawed.
in
They're all flawed.
2016.
Yeah,
And Kamala is not going to inspire.
Kamala's flawed. Biden's flawed. Trump is flawed. Pence is flawed.
There's nobody in politics. There's nobody walking
Right.
the earth that's
Right.
not flawed.
Correct.
But in terms of viability from just a projection aspect, Biden had a better chance of winning in 2016 than he does now.
I agree with that.
Trump got 8% of the black vote in 2016, and I think that we'll probably see it be somewhere around 15 to 17% this year.
What? What? What are you talking? You think that Trump's going to get more of the black vote this time?
Absolutely.
No. Yeah, you can cut that in half. That 4 is going to look more like 5. I mean that 8 is going to look more like 5.
We can come back and revisit this.
We're going to have
I'm
to.
telling you
We're
right
going to have
now.
to.
I'm
So
telling you
So
right
in your
now.
opinion, Trump gets reelected is what you're saying?
Oh, he definitely gets reelected. At this point, it's just by who. I just like to play with the nuances and the numbers of who, where his support grew versus where it diminished, and how they made up that ground.
Yeah. Yeah. So you're saying that he's running his campaign right. He's doing things correctly. Is that what you're saying?
No, I didn't say any of those things. I said he's going to win again.
So meaning he's going to cheat again,
He didn't cheat the first time.
or Putin cheated. Whoever cheated.
You
So
know,
there was no funny business. It was just up and up. There's nothing strange, nothing to see here.
no, it really isn't. And the funny thing is, most people that talk about the Russian collusion did not read that report in its entirety. And like, the Democrats should be ashamed of themselves because the Republicans they didn't collude with Russia. Russia knew that they didn't have to collude with the Republicans because Democrats suck at outreach. So when you really route that we are not a monolith, like we've been saying for years on panels, and figured out how to target different messaging to different portions of our population, that the Democrats still don't even do yet for their own good. They could learn something from the Russians, as a matter of fact. I'm just saying, you should read the report. It's very impressive. It's like direct
The
marketing.
Democrats can learn from the Russians. Do you hear
Yeah,
yourself?
I do. I read the report. I read the report.
Yeah, I mean the sheer hypocrisy. If Hillary Clinton, let's replace Hillary with Donald Trump. Hillary gets elected under the same collusion cloud that Trump did. The same FBI that announced Hillary was under investigation but failed to announce that Trump was under investigation. You flip that, he comes in office, everybody around him, mysteriously getting locked up. Um, all of the things that happened, you conservatives would be crying worse than you cried about Benghazi, worse than you cried about Obamacare. I can't believe that.
Okay, so first of all, let's remember that just because I'm a conservative does not mean I'm a Trump conservative. So I didn't
So
cry about
there is a
Benghazi.
difference.
Yeah, just like there are the Democratic Socialists inside the Democratic Party right now that want to elect people like Ben Jealous and support AOC, and then there's the moderates that support Biden. Trump doesn't define my conservatism.
Yeah,
I
because
didn't
he's not
even
a
vote for him.
conservative. Because he's not a
He's not
conservative.
he's not a conservative. He's just a registered Republican, and those are two very different things. And
So how
so
can
no,
you defend him then?
I'm not defending him. I'm just saying that everything he gets accused of is not all real. Like
Okay.
sometimes we be giving him more credit than his actual intellect gives him the capacity to do. Like, and when you read this Russian report, you can see, especially as you would see it, D, because of your background in media, right? And how important messaging is. They looked at the different tracks and trajectories in which people of color vote and or don't vote and reinforce those images, not for him, just around the validity of the election, which is a trigger for people of color because we've constantly been having this conversation of does our vote count or it doesn't
Yeah.
matter anyway, right? They've
Yeah.
taken all of these conversations we've had openly and publicly, culturally, across party lines, across generations, and refined 4 to 5 target areas to hit, right? Just to feed into the hysteria, not for or against anyone, just feed into the hysteria. That's what marketing is. They do that to us when Jordan's about to come out. They do
Well.
that when they release a new flavor of Oreo.
Well.
So you
True.
can't fault them for making the machine work in a way that was in their best interest. When, as a capitalistic country, we applaud companies for doing it.
Yeah, but with the part of what you're saying, I agree with, but the significant part, the line, is involving foreign governments.
The Russians were
That's the
targeting
line.
black people. The Russians would never, if the Russians were to be able to take credit for the 53% of white women that voted for Trump, then I might see your collusion strategy. But there was
Well, there's
nothing.
it's a web. It's there are multiple things. It's not one thing. It's not two things. It's three things.
53% of white women voted for Donald Trump against another white woman.
Yeah. Well, this
The
one,
best thing that this
she was
election
flawed.
did,
She was flawed beyond
she was
flaws.
more than flawed, but also
She was tainted.
it's not the responsibility of the black woman to save the Democratic Party when the Democratic Party, policy wise, has not given any return on investment to black people or black communities or even in black leadership.
Okay,
And then we
so
get
are you
blamed
saying
for it.
that the Republican Party that's where the return is going to be?
The Republican Party doesn't pretend to need me. They don't act like they're gonna do outreach for me or speak for me. When I come to the table, then I come to the table to speak for myself, but I come knowing that I wasn't invited. They could care less if I'm there. But once I'm there, they're willing to listen and I can negotiate things out of it. As opposed to a table I'm expected to be at and I'm expected to speak at and put on a show for, that I know when we stand up, it's 3 or 4 motherfuckers that was at the top of the table that's going to go in another room and undermine everything I've just said, no matter how much they applauded it. I like the enemies I can see and that I know.
I just think that people frequently Republicans will frequently say this is the party of Lincoln, blah 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 blah. Right. All right. Let's be clear. The Democratic and the Republican Party started as one unit. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
It was the Democratic Republican Party. There was a break and they split. But let's not be under any misconception that they are really coming from the same tree.
But neither of them envisioned a place for you and I in it. So why should only one have an undying loyalty to it from our community?
As different factions of both parties, the Southern Democrats and the overt racists that have they flip flop, and different wings will become more pro this, less this, and at different points in times, you've had some of the most racist politicians being in either party at any point in time. So I'm not putting all the stake in the parties itself. My thing is who what agenda is the party following at any given point in time, and at the time that we are right now, the Republicans want to a suppress the vote, prevent minorities from voting, and and the gerrymandering. I mean, there's so many things that I'm surprised that you align yourself with a
But you
party that
you
has
have
those
to look
ideas.
at it. You have to look at it in context, right? Okay, so 2018 was the first election that returning citizens and felons got the right to vote back in Maryland, right? This is
Right.
a Democratic strong city as Baltimore and a state as in Maryland. We've only had two Republican governors in the modern century, Bob Ehrlich, Larry Hogan. Who took the right to vote from the formerly incarcerated? Democratic policy. Who is it that then had the policies that locked up thousands of Baltimoreans illegally? They got sued by the ACLU, lost the case, and had to pay thousands of people for giving them criminal records. Democratic policy. So we understand voter suppression for some reason only when it's painted in the context of what the Republicans do. But we champion people who have legitimately suppressed our vote right here where we live in our own backyard and say nothing about it being voter suppression because they're Democrats.
No, well, I definitely agree with your premise. But like I was
But it's
saying,
a fact.
there's wrong that happened in both. But the main tool of a Republican is whataboutism. Never accept or answer the question that is stated, but you said I did this, but what about when you did that? It's never addressing what I did and then bringing it up. It's always turn the table, point to
And
something
so
else, never answer the question.
and Democrats peddle idealism with
Absolutely,
or without
absolutely,
feasibility. With or
absolutely.
without feasibility. So I mean, if you gotta pick an ism, is it what about ism or idealism? At least one of them is rooted in some kind of fact. Because before I can say what about that, you had to do something first.
Yeah.
They just selling hopes and dreams.
So O'Malley Hogan, who did a better job as governor?
Hogan.
Okay. Why do you say that?
So some of O'Malley's supposed to be successes are really inherited from the Ehrlich administration. Um,
Oh, a Republican can notice when something's inherited. That's good to know. I didn't know that y'all
you're
noticed
not
that.
gonna keep playing this card with me because I know there are parts of
I
me
know,
that
I know. I
Donald
know.
Trump
You say you're not a
inherited from
Trump girl. You're not
Obama.
the Trump girl. I got you.
He inherited some stuff from Obama. I understand that too. That's how policy works, though. People
Sure,
think,
sure.
the day you write it into law, you about to see all of these things happen. No, for the economy to grow, people have to actually go get the jobs you created, get paid from those jobs, spend that money in a way that reverberates, and then come back to before you can start collecting data. So,
Yeah.
yeah, O'Malley inherited some good decision making from Ehrlich. Um, but we also Baltimore was crippled under what he had done as mayor, and then he continued to spread that throughout the state, especially with the resources removed from around our correctional system. We can't expect the recidivism rate to go down if we're not investing in creating an atmosphere for rehabilitation or course corrective behavior in the lives of the people that interact with it. Um, Hogan's returns, a lot of the things that came from Ehrlich's administration, as well as expanded on the ones such as, especially with the interest in minority business, which O'Malley really never took a significant investment or look into, but Hogan and Ehrlich both did, and we've seen an expansion in minority-owned businesses in the states and in women-owned businesses, and those things matter.
What type of job do you think Hogan has done with regards to the pandemic response?
I was completely pleased with his response to the pandemic. Um, as people started to lose faith in him, like I knew it would be short lived that he would be seen as one of the top leaders in the country for this, because in an election year like this one, despite the fact that he too is not a Trump Republican, I knew Democrats weren't going to be applauding him, but for so long. So as it continued and it went on, and it was longer than we originally anticipated, or some people thought the president was going to take stricter actions to limit it in other places. Um, I think that it was important for him to allow the varying municipalities to control what was happening. It wasn't not only just not good for the economy of Maryland, but it wasn't good for businesses or people or their mental health to continue to punish other counties with full state measures that weren't having the increases that Prince George's County, Montgomery County, Baltimore City were having. You had places like Charles County and other places, Washington County, that were having very few cases. And so we can't punish everyone for the lack of discipline of a few. And so when he
Well,
made
see,
that
now,
decision,
I gotta stop you right there. I gotta stop you right there. That philosophy right there is why we are still having the pandemic at the proportions in this country that we are. 6 months, 7 months, way too long.
I
We have
disagree.
no, we have to see. I'm saying this philosophy of, well, over here is not a problem, so we shouldn't have to lock down over here because we don't have any cases here and y'all have cases there. The thing about the pandemic, the thing about the virus is that it doesn't stop at a county line or a state line. It spreads as people spread and people move around the country. And
But
so,
now that's the thing that should have been
but
regulated.
that's
That
why we should have locked. If we had locked everyone down, even if you had few cases at the moment, the fact that you're still moving around leaves you susceptible to have a spread. So we got to lock down everything.
Maryland never saw the kinds of spikes that New York and
True,
Florida did because
true.
he shut the state down initially. Now, the difference is that Florida, and you have to look at where those spikes were. Those were in states that have Republican governors that have followings that don't believe the virus is real,
But
that
that's what
don't
I'm
believe
saying.
it's
No, that's
science.
what I'm saying.
He
Those
shut us
Republic.
completely down, but when it was time to open back up, when he phased it, it was, I'm going to leave it to your mayors and your county executives to what level of reopening you do. I'm not going to mandate it. And
But that's
that
what
allowed
Trump
Jack
did too,
that
leaving it
allowed
to the
Jack
passing the buck, kicking it down the road, and everyone all of the Republicans that were lackadaisical fell victim to the
Well,
outcry
we
of the
we didn't
public.
have people going from Prince George's County because Angela Brooks still had them in a lockdown to Westminster to escape the lockdown. But we did have people that left New York and went to Florida, that left
Yeah, definitely.
California and went to Florida. That's federal. That is for the president and the governors
But
of
see,
those states to come up with a
everyone's
better
passing
plan.
everyone's
But you
passing the
asked
buck.
me about Maryland, and
Yeah, I'm saying,
we
but
didn't see
we
spikes.
didn't
We didn't see spikes in
initially.
municipalities that didn't have it.
But now things have risen back again, and that is
Yeah,
risen,
because half of Park Heights was down Miami for 4th of July, yo.
which is in Florida, DeSantis
Right.
area, and but that's getting back to my bigger point because people travel, and if your location was nothing going on and you travel to a location where other people travel to that it was crazy numbers, and then you take that back to your county that had no very low transmission, and now you have pandemic that is visited your area.
Once we made the list of states that if you travel to, you had
Yeah.
to quarantine one's coming from, we had those same rules as it applied to certain states too. In reverse, that you were supposed to report it and
Yes.
start quarantine for 14 days. But my question is, how is it the governor's fault that we can watch the news, right? We know that Florida is more of a hot spot than us, and because we tired of being cooped up in the house in this 4th of July weekend, we rationalize going to the pandemic,
Right.
right?
Right.
Like we brought it back home.
Well, back here,
Myrtle
yeah. I mean
Beach for
that.
Black
Yeah.
Bike Week. It's
Yeah.
people in Atlanta partying right now. Like we not being responsible. So you can't govern
But
human
as you
accountability and
but
responsibility.
just how Marylanders did that, Baltimoreans more specifically, people have done that all over the country. Is
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm saying, and that's why it's still at the numbers. That's why we're approaching 170K that have passed from this. That's why we have these crazy infection rates and it comes from the top. If the president was, uh, sh- acting like and leading with a sense of urgency and not being dismissive, flip flopping, mask one day, no mask the next day. You know what I mean? I personally think that his brother passed from coronavirus.
But you see, we always want people to act in the way that we want them to think. Again, his base and most likely himself do not even really believe that this virus is real.
Ask Herman Cain if it's real.
It, if Herman Cain was still alive right now, he would still be refusing to wear a mask and say no, he doesn't think it's real.
Which is crazy. That's
and
crazy.
The only reason he's not here to say it is because it is.
And he listened to Trump because we know it's real. It's it's no question of whether it's real. The question is what to do about it.
No, the question is what is real. Does what makes it real for you make it real for someone else?
Okay.
Because we're going to be arguing at brick walls until we realize that real in and of itself is relative to different people. It means different things. For me and you and certain people, real means a scientist or a doctor confirmed it. Someone smarter than us who is an expert in the field.
Yeah.
To someone else who believes in another sort of information gathering, if it hasn't affected anyone that they know, or they know someone that lived through it, or they believe in conspiracy theories and it's government made and it's only dispatched in certain places, it's not real. It's a controlled experiment. It is something that is not going to impact them because they're on the sides of the people running the experiment. You see what I'm saying?
Real but that still affects people. The non-believers affect the believers with their irresponsible actions or lack thereof.
But if you admonish them out the gate, calling them irresponsible and not hearing and honoring what they think and feel, which is very real to them too, you won't find a common ground to work with them to slow the spread. You can't insult their intelligence just because they don't believe what you believe in. And that's where politics and how we lose so many people. And you had just as many people not vote in 2016 as did.
Yeah, that's true. No, well, I mean, here's the thing. Okay, seatbelts save lives. We know that, right? Is that fair to say? Seatbelts save lives. Everybody doesn't want to wear a seatbelt. It's uncomfortable. You don't feel like it. All this kind of stuff, right? But seatbelts are the law, right? You don't hear Republicans saying, "Oh, it's my constitutional right to not wear a seatbelt." Blah 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 blah.
Sure you do. You don't remember?
Yeah, I'm saying now
a federal law.
It is what it is now. There's the expression. No, I'm saying yes. Smoking indoors. People used to like to smoke indoors, right? Then they decided to change the law. Right. They decided to change the law. So now you have to go outside to smoke.
I'm a professional. I want to smoke right now.
Right. There is laws, and you can make federal laws. People will say something about it for a little while, and then it's over with. Then it just becomes a part of the routine. That's what needs to happen with masks until we get things under control.
And so that's where my conservative kicks in, right? That's a slippery slope. That a knee-jerk emotional reaction. Because we can't control human behavior. To use federal oversight powers to that magnitude.
But why do you feel like that about the cigarettes? Why do you feel like that about cigarettes? That's me. That's people.
The founding principle for the country is the importance of states' rights. I'm not ever going to get pushed to a place where I stop believing in the founding principles of the country. And that there's a reason that each state has its own constitution. Yeah. Some are members of the Commonwealth and some are not. When we start reacting because we don't have any proof, right?
No. We do have proof. Let's go back to cigarettes.
Would have handled this pandemic any better on the back end, right? That at the end we wouldn't have still lost just as many lives.
When you say proof, I mean we don't have an actual example to point to because it didn't happen. But judging by her reactions, the stuff that she said publicly, it is fair to assume she would not do the same thing that Trump did.
And even if she doesn't mean that her results were going to be any better, is my point.
Now, that is true. We don't know
Because
that
I
part.
think that what
But,
people were calling for, I
however,
don't think they understood the reaction it would have gotten. If we had gone into full martial law, full
no, that's
national
not what I'm saying.
shutdown.
That's not what I'm saying. And that's the thing that is so that's the difference maker right there. The average Republican starts talking. It's no shades of gray. It's either black or white. It's either no rules or the government wants to take over and take my guns. Everything is martial law. It's not martial law. I'm saying that if we had 2 months, had the mask mandate, we would be on the other side of this. School would be regular, businesses would be regular, but because we did
But
not,
that's not how viruses work.
that the levels would have gone down because this virus has just been bouncing around, bouncing around, bouncing around, and it won't ever stop until it is contained. Until we have to quarantine
Viruses
the
don't
people.
stop. That's not how
No, it doesn't.
science
It no, it's
works.
not gonna. It's not gonna go to zero, but it's not gonna be at the level that it is right now. It's
We
as
don't
high
know
now as
that.
it's ever been
We
in
don't know
America.
that. And then to make it worse, if we had gone to that mandate, first of all, we already had mandates in most places for masks, and you've seen the IG videos of the people wilding out that don't want to wear masks in the grocery store. Now, take that same mandate and limit somebody's ability to leave from county to county or state to state. What do you think that these crazy people would have done?
I don't think that you. I don't think that. See, my thing is that the stay at home order is not what I'm talking about. I'm not saying that people couldn't travel. I'm only saying that masks need to be worn in public to prevent the droplets from coming out of your mouth and being breathed in by me. That is it. I'm not saying you can't go nowhere. I'm just saying everywhere in this country, if it was like that, we would have numbers that are a lot lower than what they are. However, you have people breathing on each other, exchanging spit in public, all this kind of crap that's happening, and that's why it is continuing to linger. It's like when a virus, flu virus, or something gets passed around a job, right? It goes from all these people. If that person stayed their butt home, it wouldn't be passed around this office. But because they came to work, now it's jumping from cubicle to cubicle to cubicle to the cleaning lady to everybody else because somebody did not want to quarantine, aka take some sick time.
Yeah, but at the same token, though, even if everybody wore masks, the mask doesn't supersede the fact you're supposed to be socially distancing. Mask
Absolutely.
doesn't supersede the fact that you're supposed to only be going out for essentials and not
True.
socializing. So, like, we again don't really have the empirical data that can say for sure that even a mask mandate would have changed our outcomes if people were still able to move about as they wanted and as they wished from infected to non-infected areas at their own whim.
Why do we ask people to cover their mouth when they sneeze?
Because of how it projects the germs that project when you sneeze and cough up to 100 feet or something.
Yeah, and so why wouldn't people think that covering your mouth with some type of something that's not your hand would prevent an airborne virus? Why wouldn't
They,
people? Why is that not common sense?
because first of all, common sense ain't common, and you've been around this side of the globe long enough to know that. And the second one is that it's different than being raised to do something as being manners versus being told to do something by a governmental agency. There are some
Yeah.
people who are hardwired that the moment it becomes a demand from authority, have an issue. Not because they can clearly articulate it, not because it makes sense, but just because they now feel like their freedom is imposed upon because you told them to do something that they didn't, that they may have already been willing to ordinarily do themselves.
Yeah.
Like one of my favorite memes when all this started was, "You've never questioned your doctor's freedom when he wears a mask in the operating room." Like we would look at a doctor or a nurse crazy if they came in certain, sterilized areas without masks. We come to expect that of medical professionals.
Yeah.
And now for reasons that are medicinal related, we the crazy people because we want you to put a mask on too.
Yeah, so I just it's something else, and it's something that I don't see going away anytime soon because of the difference in opinion. Um, for those just tuning in, Diamond K in here. Catalina Byrd is my guest, and so with the election coming Tuesday, November the 3rd, we have this mail in versus in person thing, which is something that normally exists, but now, of course, it is exasperated by this pandemic. Are you going to vote in person or are you voting by mail?
Me,
Yeah.
it's a combination. I think I'm probably going to do what I did for the primary in June, which is take my filled out ballot and put it in one of the Board of Elections designated drop boxes.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't mail it back. I also didn't vote until election day because I'm kind of sappy like that, and I really enjoy election day, and I wanted to go vote in person.
Uh huh.
So that was the closest to in person that I got because I didn't want to stand in lines, and I had different polling sites I had to work as a candidate. So I probably do it like that again.
So for Marylanders that want to vote by mail, you can do that, or you can also vote in person. Um, for mail voting, they just need to request the mail-in ballot with the mail-in ballot application. Fill the whole application out completely. Submit the request to the local election office. The thing is that the president has tried to muddy the waters. So I'd like to get your opinion on this. Is this coming from your opinion? And I know you're not the Trump. You don't work for the Trump administration. Is this something that he legitimately feels is something to stop fraud, or is he trying to do something to suppress the vote?
I don't think that he is doing either. Um, the effort to privatize the postal system is one um, that's been happening under Republican and Democratic administrations. I don't think that he understands the conversation, but that he's being fed talking points to make it related to the Democrats trying to steal this election in a very emotionally disingenuous way, because that'll trigger people about voter suppression and things of that matter. The idea of privatizing the postal service is one that is neither liberal nor conservative. It is one that has been on the table, and it's always been under the guise of it costs too much. When you saw the growth of UPS and DHL and FedEx and now Amazon and having their own delivery mechanism, became the argument of, is the Postal Service, which is still one of our largest federal employers next to the military, worth what it cost us? Like, how many times in your lifetime do you remember stamps going up and that being a big political discussion? Are regular people going to be able to afford to mail their bills in if we up the postage stamp another 2 cents? And then we finally bottomed out at the forever stamp, right? And so I don't think that he personally has the historical context or even the bandwidth to understand this conversation around the Postal Service. I
Yeah.
just think whoever's advising him is telling him to talk about it in the context of election fraud, because those are small words he can understand that resonate with his base. Because if you think about it, like, everybody was up in arms when they took this mailbox from Mondawmin and they just noticed it, right? But they've been removing mailboxes in West Baltimore for the last 10 years. Like, mailboxes and payphones are almost scarce in West Baltimore. And this started long before Trump was president or before pandemic or before mail-in voting. We just don't have payphones. We don't have mailboxes. Like people know where the mailboxes are to go to at a certain time. Where you just go to the drive-through and go to the post office.
Yeah, that is true. So you think that somebody has their arm up the back of his shirt and using him as a puppet to speed us to the privatization of the postal service?
Yep.
And here my biggest problem with Trump is this: if he had played his cards correctly, he would have had support from Democrats and Republicans. If he had handled this pandemic in a responsible way, now even if you want to say that whatever steps you want to say he should have done this, done that, if he had had an actual strategy, stuck to it, and showed us positive results on the other side, people would have said, okay, he did this, he did this, he did this, but when we got in trouble, he had our backs. And that's something that Larry Hogan has enjoyed. Some people didn't like Larry Hogan, myself included, and the job that he was doing prior to the pandemic. However, I did enjoy and appreciate and respect the way he handled the pandemic in Maryland in the beginning. And that got a lot of positive feedback from people that wouldn't normally support him. And on a bigger scale, if the president had done that, he would have been in a better position. But he lacks discipline and any type of reading, insight, any of that stuff. He lacks all that. And that's why we're in this situation. So, right before the election, to be screwing with the post office, to me, it makes literally no sense.
I mean, but I don't think that anything he's done in his candidacy has made sense to you. So why would you expect this one thing to?
Yeah, I mean, it's just that
I
to
think that's the
me,
most disappointing part of democratic emotionalism and hysteria, right? That if Trump was this doomsday scenario that they sold us 4 years ago, right? If this was truly the complete decline and end of a nation,
I don't
then
think they
why
sold it
is it?
like that.
Oh, I mean, oh yes, they did. They sold it. They sold it as the end of the world. It was damn near
They
the
said that when
apocalypse.
we
And then,
essentially when we get in trouble, he's going to screw it up, and that's what's happened.
okay, but so if that's the case, on January 21st, 2017, the day after he was sworn in, Democrats should have had a plan. They should have had one candidate, not 18, and been running that one
I
candidate
agree with that.
as the counter all 4 years of this term. There shouldn't
I
have to
agree.
be a question of who the VP is and which base you have to serve and a bunch of money wasted on polling. If this was truly the devil incarnate that he was made out to be,
No, no, he
how
he
is it that
is
there was
he
no plan?
he is, but it's the same reason why the Republicans claimed that they didn't want Obamacare for all this time, and they've never had a replacement. They didn't plan for a replacement. They don't have any idea. It's the same reason. I mean, both,
The
and I agree
Republicans
with what you're
not unique
saying.
to
But
Republicans.
that's what politicians do. They
All politicians,
Yes, all
not just
no,
Republicans,
yes,
because
yes. You're
in
right.
2000, in 2003, 4, 5, and 6, when Bob Ehrlich was trying to legalize casinos here in Maryland, Democrats swore it was the worst thing possible. O'Malley hadn't been in office 90 days before he signed it, and now we have Live, we have Horseshoe. But for the 4 years, it was the Republicans' idea. It was going to increase gambling addictions.
It was a
It
bad
was going
idea
to
on
ruin
both sides.
families. It was going to ruin communities. It was going to have
Yeah,
all of these
yeah.
terrible, terrible
That were not true.
repercussions.
Yeah.
And then, not even 90 days in, that same person who was the standard bearer for the argument against it became the biggest champion for it.
Yeah, because y'all made such a positive argument why we needed to have it, and he saw the
Whatever.
money, and he saw the money in it that he could
The
get.
same developer that owned them that was going to get paid if Ehrlich got it is the same
Is the
developer
same
that,
one.
that
Yeah.
got paid.
Yeah.
And so he just had to wait on his money.
Correct.
That's all.
But that's all it ever is. That's all it
Mm-hmm.
ever is. Um. So are we going to see lines of people outside? I mean, what do you think
Yep.
is going to happen? Yes.
You're going to have lines again like we did in the primary.
Yeah.
Um, you have people that don't trust voting by mail that are not going to do so even if they don't have an issue with their postal delivery or pickup at this time.
Yeah.
Um, I think that it's going to be another one of those ones, at least here in Baltimore City, as it applies to like some of our council races and things. It's going to be another one of those ones where we're days into getting the results because of how the counting process works, and it's not the same as voting. Everybody voting in person electronically. I think there's some races that are going to get called too soon. I think there's some races that
Yeah. Oh,
aren't going to
definitely.
be able, that are going to be so close they can't be called soon. And I just hope that people are readying for that and don't start with, because we saw it happen in the mayor's race, right? When Sheila had early numbers that were reported, but they hadn't called a win. Once the in-person and the ballot box numbers came in and it switched to Brandon, people then immediately started with their conspiracy theories and
Mm-hmm.
votes, elections stolen and this, that, and the third, when they just really didn't understand the process and how it differs this time around as a result of the way that we have to vote this time.
Yeah. A lot of people were saying that, and I think that more people are paying attention now, and they don't understand how this whole thing works, which is
But they
why.
never did.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
never did. We don't teach civics in school anymore.
Yeah.
People just trust whoever their pastor brings and flaunts into the pulpit, or whoever Larry Young and them say is who black people should trust.
Yeah. Well, I hope that people are going to wear masks when they go, and be prepared to stand in line because, like you said, there is going to be a line. I think that they wanted the vote increased in person because they wanted to play with the numbers.
Well, I mean, we had one of our highest voter turnouts in this June primary with the mail-in ballot. I think that it actually shows the opposite, and I wish the narrative around voting by mail would change, because when it didn't become something that you had to do at a specific day and time despite your schedule, we saw increased turnout. We saw
Definitely.
increased participation.
Definitely.
We allowed this to become something that people could do kind of like they watch their favorite shows on streaming
On
services
demand. Yeah.
on demand and at their leisure. And I think that we need to take the stigmatism from around this, and let's change this narrative and see where we've spent years moving elections around, redistricting based on voter turnout. Well, if this is something that's proven to be a mechanism to increase turnout, let's not figure out ways to make people more skeptical of it. Let's have healthy conversations about how to build on this momentum and continue it.
Yeah. I mean, I think
I
that
mean, that would be my thinking, but that's
yeah,
my
that's
version.
your thinking. That's not the average conservative thought. I also think that we saw greater numbers because a good portion of the voters are either working from home or unfortunately not working at the moment. So you didn't have as many people having to take off work and juggle something around and leave. I mean, it was another opportunity to get out the house and kind of go somewhere else for a minute or an hour or two. And I think that
The
that played a
people
part in
wasn't
it too.
in the house, D.
Well,
The
so, yeah,
people wasn't
something.
never in the house. I'm trying to tell you, they was never in the house.
Mm-hmm.
As
Yeah.
I drive up North Avenue, I'm telling you that it didn't look no different in April than it did May, than it would if I go right up there right now. It's popping off in front of the Chinese joint. It's popping off in front of the liquor store. There's people in the Burger King parking lot.
Sure.
It didn't change. It didn't change. And you might find one mask in the whole block. You can't legislate human behavior. And when we stop trying on making that the goal, we can write much more effective policy and affect the systems that create these kinds of pockets of poverty. But they never was in the house, y'all. Not never ever.
Could you find yourself voting for Biden?
No.
You honestly think that the country would be better off with 4 more years of Trump than 4 years of Biden?
It has nothing to do with what I believe the country would be better with. I already have resigned to the notion that Trump is going to win re-election. Just like I knew he was going to win the election in 2016 and I didn't vote for Hillary. I didn't vote for him either. I'm not voting for him again. This time around, since he's likely not to make it in Maryland, I'll probably write in Kanye.
Okay. That's a whole nother. I was not expecting us to bring up Kanye today. That that is a whole mockery there. The whole
It is not a
Kanye.
mockery. It is not. And he's another one, kind of like Kim Klacik and Kamala Harris. He's another one that I love to use to just expose the hypocrisy. I can make a post about any one of the three of them.
What
Um,
hypocrisy does Kanye expose? Now, Kim Klacik, she's pretty. I mean, but what is Kanye? What is the Kanye? What?
Kanye has an actual platform. He has a body of work in the philanthropic and business community. He's more than just a rapper. And at
Oh, he's
best,
more than just a rapper. He's a what?
he's an entrepreneur. He's a businessman.
Okay.
He's a father. Like, I mean,
Okay.
there are certain
None
requirements.
of these things make him qualified to run the country. Donald Trump's not qualified to run the country.
I
I mean,
wouldn't say, but Donald Trump is president, and I feel
yeah,
like
but he wasn't
Kanye has a
qualified.
better. I think that Kanye has a better moral compass than Donald Trump.
I don't know if I believe that because Kanye follows Trump. So that means that his moral compass has to be what
It's
Trump's
not the
is.
same. And see, and that's not the same as following Trump. When Kanye got saved and changed different aspects of his life,
When?
his
A year ago?
no, it's been more than a year now.
Oh, a year and a half. You're right.
No, no.
It ain't been
Sunday
that long. He was just hugging Trump. Yeah, it wasn't that long ago. It wasn't that
Sunday
long ago.
Sunday services, like when he started the church and stuff, Sunday services started about 3 years ago now.
Oh no,
Anyway,
no,
my point is
whatever. But go
that
ahead.
my point is that in that evangelical Jesus, magical Jesus world,
Yeah.
that you don't have any enemies. So he's just trying to demonstrate what his faith is telling him he's supposed to walk right now. That doesn't mean he believes in every single thing Donald Trump does. He's even addressed that in these interviews that he did around the campaign, and that there's things that Trump has done or believes in that he doesn't, but he's still gonna love him as a child of God. That's what
He
church
also
preachers
he
do.
also tried to dismiss Harriet Tubman.
That was not what happened.
Oh, he. There wasn't Kanye. Was that a clone?
It wasn't that it was a clone. One of the things about Kanye being very much a Gemini and a creative is that when he gets in the stream of consciousness and gets excited, he doesn't articulate his point or his feeling in the best way, which makes him and has always made him prey to the sound bite, or as Sarah Palin used to call it, gotcha media moments, where
Definitely.
they take 10, 15, 20 seconds of a 35, 40-minute conversation and act as though this is the context of the statement. That's why whenever, like, as soon as Kanye goes on one of his rants or whatever, because everybody knows how, like, a big supporter I am and have been for years, I get tagged everywhere. I'm getting tagged on Twitter. Cat, come get your boy. What's your man
Yeah.
talking about now? And so, everybody knows my one rule is I'm not going to comment on what Kanye has said until I go see it in its entirety. You cannot tag me in clips and expect me to respond to which this framing wants me to think he meant. I've been in media too long. Like, I know how we work. I know that sensationalism and clickbait sells and
Oh
is
yes, it's
following.
beautiful. Yeah.
And he is a treasure. He's a gold mine for that. But
He's
it
a
doesn't.
clickbait dream.
He's a clickbait dream, but that doesn't mean that's always what he's saying.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, a lot of times the more outrageous things that he says tend to come to the forefront. Most people do not dissect every little word that Kanye says because he says so much craziness. Um,
And I
and
think we should be careful about dismissing people who think differently as crazy.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's not thinking differently. I mean, if you're going to also defend the things that he talked about almost aborting the child and saying these things publicly, his daughter, the one who was not aborted, has to eventually hear these things. It has an effect. It will have an effect. He's just having diarrhea of the mouth and saying things. He says things to publicly.
And this is when I agree with Dave Chappelle that we have just become brittle and too sensitive as a society. I know that my family wasn't the only family that talked about, and especially when it came to them youngest kids. You the last one because I said I was done, but your daddy got me drunk that night. Like it's part of our culture and our community
Well, I mean,
to
well,
tell
let's
our
go back to
kids
spanking kids
how
too.
they
Let's go back
got
to
here.
spanking
But
kids.
now all of
Yeah,
a sudden, because Kanye Weston said it,
I was waiting for
now
that.
North is going to need therapy for
Well,
forever. This is
her
the worst
mother
thing that anyone.
her mother
Michael
came up off
Jackson's
a sex
children
tape
were
with Ray
all
J. She
test
definitely
tube
gonna need
babies.
therapy.
They was test tube babies. And we all knew about how Michael Jackson and that white woman conceived them children. Did nobody say Michael was wrong for telling the story to Barbara Walters? But Kanye said
No, he
it.
definitely was wrong. Yeah,
And now
those
it
kids
is
are
so
screwed
much
up.
more
No,
egregious.
those Jackson kids, those little white kids are screwed up. No,
North is going to be fine. North is going to be fine. Just like my aunties and my cousins that got told that they were the result of a drunken night or the hit the lotto or came home from the juke joint or whatever the case may be. It's some kids that we done told God,
yeah,
they products of a night with you or pork chop spinning. Like, come on now. We know it's somebody that left from down the docks or something one night that
definitely.
was furred and they kid is a graduate about to go up Morgan now or something. Come on now. It is no more egregious because Kanye did it. It's what we allow people to be triggered by, like who we allow to be triggered.
Well,
Kanye can't do no right.
I'm here to tell you that the birthday party, which is Kanye West party, why we should take him serious, they need to hire you to hit these interview circuits because he can't speak for himself, but you can speak for him much better than he can.
I would be willing to if I wasn't running my own race, but I'm here for it. Like I could be Kanye Simone Sanders, okay? Wouldn't be no problem to me at all.
So for people that are interested, the Postmaster General has announced that they're going to halt service changes. I think that some illegal activity has taken place, and Trump and DeJoy and Barr and a whole bunch of other people better hope that they're not brought up on charges eventually for all of the things that they have done. Um, as far as you, what is going on with you? What is the latest with you? Please let the people know.
Well, first and foremost, thank you for joining Brandon and I for our ceasefire club music versus.
Oh yes,
We
absolutely,
appreciated that.
absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Um, I've got some council races that I'm supporting. I am helping Kim Klasick in any way that I can that's feasible.
Yeah, I wanted you to get that in. Yep.
I am. We're getting ready to announce the writing campaign. There's some people that opted to vote for me in the primary because we're a close primary state that still want to have the option and what I brought to the table in terms of my platform and the discussion going into November. Um, so gearing up and getting ready to do that again. Seeing what school looks like in a safe and healthy way for my child in COVID. And that's about it.
Um,
And definitely trying to get in touch with Kanye.
you you mentioned Kimberly Classic, and she's running for the seat of the late great Elijah Cummings in Congress. Why why is she better suited for this than Kwesi Mfume?
Well, for one, I've never been one to believe in recycling people to positions. Place he had this seat, he had it for a number of terms, and then he stepped down in 1996. The idea and the narrative that was spun around him was that he would have all of these relationships and this tenure going in, but this is not the Congress that he was in 26 years ago. Those relationships aren't all still there, and different people have been elected. Some others have died. And there is no automatic seniority for returning. So there's no guarantee that he's going to be on these top committees that people assume he would be because Elijah was. And then also,
Well, that is how they
I,
presented it.
but that's how they presented it.
Yeah.
And then there's his background, in NAACP. And just as a woman, having an issue with us turning the other cheek, as we too often do in our community, about um, sexual harassment and workplace misconduct. Nobody's batting an eye about it right now. In his case, even though Elijah's late wife, Maya, did try to bring it up during her campaign, and we just saw that, Tavis Smiley just got ordered to pay $2.6 million for his
Right.
workplace affairs. So
Right.
we're finding one black man for one thing and celebrating another, or amplifying another for another. And I just don't. That's not what my personal constitution lies in. So if it's about trying something new and someone new who has the ear of the president and with the right coaching could possibly be able to go to the table and get some things for our community that we haven't had,
Well,
I'm willing to take that chance.
it's a hell of a chance. I saw her during the primaries, working the crowd in the line, and I would love to sit down and talk with her. Um,
Which polling site were you at?
at Edmondson.
She was at Emerson with me. We were there. We
Yeah,
walked the line
yeah, yeah,
together.
yeah,
hmm
yeah. And so she has a lot of. She's innovative. I will say that she's very innovative. I don't like the I don't like the exposing that she tries to do. I don't like that particular method. But it's going to be interesting. Every time I think that it's over with, she seems to pop back up. I'm surprised, or at least I respect her resilience.
I mean, just to be, fully transparent, when the pandemic hit, she knows she's not from here and from this district
That is clear.
originally,
Yeah.
right? And so she doesn't just show up places to make it political about her. She waits to be invited. So with each thing that she does in the community and more people she meets and gets to talk to one on one, the more invites she's getting. She's done produce giveaways. She's done food, taking the seniors. She was up in on Ricestown in Lamberth helping after the explosion last week, getting resources and things taken there through her nonprofit organization. She's not doing community work for the sake of politicizing it, but if you invite her, and I mean, that's been my experience being a Black Republican in Baltimore. I'm not, if I show up somewhere uninvited because of how naturally different we've been programmed to believe we are, it's immediately hostile. But if I come with an ambassador or somebody that invited me, introduces me and says, I know this is not who we typically invite or who we typically hear from, but I want you to meet X, Y, and Z, and somebody vouches for you, you have a much greater chance of building rapport and building traction. And so I give her a lot of credit for that. And that she understood that coming into the campaign and builds momentum in that way because that's more genuine and authentic.
Yeah, yeah, it is. So we're going to see how this goes. That is another one of the races that is on the ballot. Um, so I definitely enjoy all of our conversations. How can people stay in touch with you and follow what you are doing?
I'm myself on all social media, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at Catalina Byrd. All of them are public. I'm pretty responsive if you're respectful, even more responsive if you're not, depending on whether or not I've had any whiskey that day or not. But I mean, I'm passionate about what I do, and I'm passionate about the narratives around Black women in politics, and especially that of Baltimore. So
Absolutely, and that is something that is much needed. Your voice is very important in this, and I look forward to us speaking again. You always are welcome here.
thank you so much.
Absolutely, of course. That Catalina Byrd. Thank you as our guest today. Of course, I'm at the Diamond K Show at Radio on Fire, 7 p.m. Weekdays. RadioOnFire.com. Thanks for listening, tuning in. See you guys tomorrow.